Hello everyone, welcome to my review of the Netflix live-action adaptation of One Piece. I'll do my best to avoid major spoilers about future events past the Arlong Park arc, but anything minor or in the episode's review is free to be spoiled. Also, any clips or screenshots used in this video had to be found in trailers. I apologize ahead of time for being unable to visually show something from a specific scene, but I can't take any screenshots or record any videos while Netflix is playing. So, the time has finally come for the legendary manga and anime One Piece to be adapted into a live-action TV show, and opinions are all over the place. Some are excited, and even early previews have seen this as a step in the right direction, while others don't see how Eiichiro Oda's style could transfer into the real world without being overly comical. Before even getting into the show, the amount of promotion for this series is absolutely over the top. A crazy amount of interviews with cast members, giveaways of custom Xboxes, photo shoots where the cast is dressed up like a specific volume cover, and a huge premiere event in LA with a drone show. However cool all that promotion is, the questions I'm looking to answer are, is this 8-episode series a quality product, or is it just going to be another Death Note 2017? How well does this hold up to the original work that it was based on? Is this like an adaptation or a reinterpretation? And does this series look like it's worth $17 million per episode? Before jumping into episode 1, I wanted to cover a common complaint that was talked about plenty right after the show's length was announced. And that being, how do they plan to cover from Romance Dawn to Arlong Park in only 8-hour-long episodes? When, in the anime, it took 44 20-minute episodes to reach the end of Arlong Park. To accomplish this, Netflix tried something very similar to the One Piece project, and even their runtimes ended up being similar. For example, the Syrup Village arc takes up 2 episodes of Netflix's One Piece, and is about 2 hours and 40 minutes in the One Piece project. In honesty, anything skipped due to time constraints seems to be thrown in as an Easter egg, as it'll never end up affecting the overall story, such as Choo Choo, the dog from Orange Town, and it just makes the pacing of each episode better overall. Finally, let's get started. Very appropriately, episode 1 is titled Romance Dawn, after the beginning arc that the next hour will cover. We start off with a speech about piracy being a scourge upon the world, given by Vice Admiral Garp as he is overseeing Pirate King Roger's execution. It's a very welcome change in my opinion. It may be small, but having Garp, who is known to have cornered the Pirate King many times in the past, be present at his execution instead of only 2 faceless Marines really emphasizes Roger's power. Even though he's locked up, the Marines that are guarding this man still need one of their most powerful members just to be safe. Another detail that makes its first appearance here is the wanted poster introduction. Whenever a pirate captain / tough opponent appears, a recreation of their wanted poster from the anime will appear, and their bounty will be highlighted. However, Roger's bounty is hidden to hide how tough this man really is. After giving his infamous speech, a riot begins in the Logtown Square where everyone starts to run to the docks in search of his treasure. Amongst the watchers we can see younger versions of Mihawk, Shanks, Smoker, and possibly more. Transitioning to multiple boats sailing up to the Grand Line, the One Piece logo finally appears, with a Luffy skull and a straw hat on top of the O. I also enjoy this edition due to the fact that this logo will change in each episode, with different changes to the skull and letters that are based on different characters. After the logo, we finally meet our protagonist, Monkey D. Luffy, who is currently out at sea in a small ship slowly filling with water. Luffy is talking with a newspaper bird as if trying to recruit him for his crew. He explains that he cannot swim, wants to find the One Piece, become king of the pirates, and wants a crew of 10 men, plus a bird. Since the scene acts like a recruitment interview and talking to something out of complete boredom and loneliness, I think it passes the poorly delivered exposition test. To avoid drowning, Luffy hops into a barrel that he had on board, and eventually floats between a pirate skirmish, and his barrel is pulled aboard by the Alvida pirates. We also get a look at how much more violent this series can be, as Alvida smashes a prisoner's skull with a duck-shaped spiked club. Of course, the person isn't seen afterwards, but some flesh and a large pool of blood is left behind. Before transitioning to nighttime, Alvida also asked her crew who was the most powerful captain of all the seas, rather than what she said in the anime, which was, who is the most beautiful captain. It's not an important change, just an odd one that stuck out to me. We then meet Kobe, the aspiring Marine, who will appear in much more in later episodes compared to the original anime. I'm unsure why Kobe shows up in arcs that he wasn't in previously, but it'll be interesting to see if this has an effect on a possible Season 2 of Netflix's One Piece, and how it'll change events in the future. Luffy finally pops out of his barrel where Kobe is doing chores and cleaning Alvida's Spike Club. They semi-introduce themselves, and Kobe mentions his disdain for pirates, which leads to Luffy saying that not all pirates are bad, which starts a flashback to Luffy's childhood on Windmill Island. The episode will now follow a pattern of current events and then flashbacks to Luffy's childhood with Shanks. While I think that it worked out by the end of the episode, I think it would have been better to explain everything at once or just wait till a later time. On Windmill Island, young Luffy is eager to join Shanks' crew but is constantly refused. Frustrated at all the refusals, Luffy finally takes a knife and stabs himself under the eye, leaving him with his signature scar. Flashing back to current events, Kobe is trying to help Luffy escape Alvida's ship. However, Luffy ends up waking the entire crew by accidentally hitting a bell with an oar. Alvida and her crew wake up and attack Luffy, which finally shows off the Devil Fruit powers in live action. First, Luffy reflects a bullet, then he stretches his torso backward to dodge Alvida's club, then he stretches both arms upward to reach ropes that are up high to climb away, then he uses his head to bounce back the club, and finally, he uses his signature Gum Gum pistol. After watching this short fight scene a few times, I didn't have any problem with the Gum Gum special effects. I think the only thing that bothered me, and has since the trailer, was shouting Gum Gum pistol. It's not really distracting to hear in anime, but calling out finishing moves in live action just doesn't seem right. Even when I managed to hear the original Japanese dub over the live action scene, it still seemed off. After Luffy and Kobe escape on a lifeboat with extra food, we finally meet the pirate hunter, Roronoa Zoro. He is for some reason introduced on Sixus Island, which is another Easter egg referencing an island from the Ace spin-off novel series. Zoro is lighting a shrine for what I would guess is Kuina, his old training partner who died, when the original Mr. 7 from Baroque Works appears. Zoro kills him by cutting him clean in half, and while the show doesn't get too detailed, it is easy to see the bones and flesh on the lower and upper body sections. Sadly, this introduction doesn't give much insight into his character other than that he is serious and very proud of his swordsmanship skills. The most interesting information to come out of this scene is probably the mention of Baroque Works as yet another Easter egg, and the potential of an Alabasta Saga as the Season 2 for this live action. Cutting back to Kobe and Luffy sailing, Kobe asks Luffy how he can stretch, which cuts to another childhood flashback that starts right where the last one left off. Luffy is getting stitches for his knife wound while Bink Sake is playing in the bar. Mentioning the song, I'm glad not everything has been in your face with Easter eggs and references. So far they all make sense in terms of the overall story anyways, such as the song, which Luffy will mention in the future that he learned from Shanks' crew. But that won't be until Netflix makes a One Piece Season 10 live action. Back to the story, Luffy eats the Gum Gum fruit, which looks like green Play-Doh inside of a purple plastic shell, but since it's a fictional fruit that's not supposed to taste good anyways, I think it's worth giving a pass. And it looks good anyways. Cutting back to the boys, Kobe tells Luffy about his dream to be a Marine, and Luffy encourages him. Then they plan to go to a Marine base for Kobe to enlist and Luffy to find a map of the Grand Line. Finally, we get to my favorite introduction of this episode, Nami the Cat Burglar and Navigator. Even though Luffy has had most of the episode dedicated to him, I think this short introduction reveals more about Nami's major personality traits in comparison. And I'm glad that they used this scene for her introduction instead of using it later like it was done in the anime. So after we cut away from Luffy and Kobe, Nami is shown on a lifeboat with just a treasure chest and seems to be dying of dehydration. Two buggy pirates on what seems to be a scouting ship or something similar find her and are willing to help, but in return they want the treasure chest that they see on her raft. While they're distracted trying to open it, she steals their ship and reveals that the chest was empty the whole time. Not only is she a pro at thievery and deception, but she's also willing to sacrifice a few random pirates to achieve her goals. After paddling for a while, the boys land at a nearby marine base, and we get a look at more pirates who play much bigger roles in the future and are much more powerful than just Alvida, such as Bellamy, Foxy, and Cavendish. It's an interesting scene for fan service, but nothing more. And then all the characters come together in the same room, the Shellstown Bar. This is where many scenes start occurring in different areas to speed up the process of characters meeting and events occurring, such as Helmeppo's introduction and why Luffy wants Zoro and Nami as crewmates in the first place. Instead of Ari being tied up on the cross, Zoro is visiting the base to cash in the bounty on Mr. Seven's head, first stopping at the bar for drinks, of course. Luffy and Kobe were already here on a lunch break. Similar to the manga, the little girl tries to give Zoro a rice ball, but she runs into Helmeppo. As sort of a revenge for threatening her as he does in the anime, Zoro attacks Helmeppo and multiple marines in the bar. This results in Zoro getting crucified with ropes, but attracting Luffy's attention. I will admit, though, that the writers did make Helmeppo just as unlikable as he is in the anime. He's just as hateable, and maybe even more so. Also, Nami's plan becomes a bit more complex, so she ends up meeting Luffy earlier. She semi-seduces a marine and steals his uniform to walk around the base undetected. Following the bar, and a scene of Kobe and Luffy talking about how bad people can both exist in the Marines and the pirates, Luffy decides to break into the marine base through the sewers the next day. He finds Zoro and sets him free, even though Zoro still refuses to join his pirate crew. Continuing on, Nami gets a 5-second fight scene using her staff when she's finally discovered looting the map room. However, very conveniently, Luffy falls through the ceiling for almost no reason, and they sort of team up to find the map to the Grand Line. However, the two run into Captain Morgan anyway. Before we can see their fate, the scene cuts to a naked Helmeppo swinging around one of Zoro's confiscated swords. But now that he's free, Zoro breaks into the room to retrieve the sword, and also ends up giving Helmeppo a haircut similar to the awful one that he had when he was first introduced in the anime. Returning to Luffy and Nami, she manages to convince Morgan that she is just transporting a prisoner. They then manage to enter Morgan's office and accidentally find the safe containing a map to the Grand Line. Unable to retrieve it before an alarm sounds, however, Luffy rips the whole thing out of the ground, but ends up flying out of the window, taking Nami with him. Landing in a courtyard, the two have to start fighting multiple squads of Marines that are pouring in from all entrances. With how few fight scenes there have been so far, the fight choreography has been fun to watch and practical at the same time. Zoro also eventually appears in the courtyard, trying to sneak out. However, despite seeing freedom, he turns his back on escaping just to help Luffy and Nami. The three-sword style is especially great to see in live action. It isn't used that much in this fight, and even when it is, the third sword is only really used to hold Captain Morgan in place so Luffy can kick him in the face. And it never ends up clashing with his axe. Regardless, it looked better than expected for someone just putting a blade in their mouth. Finally, they all escape with the safe on the ship that Nami stole, and after a goodbye from Kobe, they head to their next destination. But not before a quick teaser for the next episode, where a present-day Garp and Buggy the Clown are revealed. For the first episode, I think it was a great start and easily my favorite live-action anime adaptation, although it's not really a high bar to overcome at the moment. So far, I don't mind the changes due to time constraints, because they've yet to remove any enjoyment, and I can understand why they're necessary. I thought the acting for this episode was all around serviceable. Nothing amazing yet, but hopefully in Baratier and Arlong Park, the well-known emotional moments are able to transfer over well from the anime into live action. The fights were also good, but seemed too short in some places, such as the Nami solo fight. that took place in the map room. I'd rather just see her take down guards stealthily than the 2 seconds we got of staff smacking. Overall, I would give this first episode a B+, and I hope to see you in the next episode's review.